Bam. How are you tonight? I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Oh, who are we kidding? No one's asking. So, been a long day. I got to my office at right around 7:45 and worked until about 6:30, ate dinner, 8 o'clock back down the office, getting ready for the live stream that we're doing right now. And you say, well, only an hour to get ready for the live stream. Yeah, I'm not going to put, I do have a job. So anyway, did I do, how are you? How are you? Tonight we got a lot to talk about on the employment front. We're going to talk about the disconnect between employer and employee feeling the Great Resignation. We're going to talk about TopGolf and a sneaky little technological issue there. Another article that says over 70% of workers regret quitting during the Great Resignation, and China declares that they're going to create 13 million jobs out of thin air. Somebody was asking for more transparency for job seekers by employers, which I tend to agree with. We'll go over that. And then a manager limits medical care to his employee. What's that all about? Those are the things we'll talk about tonight. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I certainly, I don't have all the answers. Okay. Don't get me wrong. But, this is the kind of stuff I like to talk about. This is the kind of stuff that interests me. This whole idea of employment, like, why are we working? What's the point? It's to feed our families. Well, that's fine. Maybe there's something more to it. I don't know. Maybe there's something more to it. Maybe there's a reason why we go to work every day and it's not always directly related to our income. Maybe we go there for social reasons. Social reasons in two ways. One, we may have friends at work, and other social reasons being, if you just don't work every day, people might look at you a little funny. I had a friend who was like 27 years old and he said he was retired. I don't think he worked for like a decade. So I get it. Just lived in his parents' house and that was that. I had something today, and sure enough, as soon as I got on the stream, I lost it. Where it came from and what it was about. But anyway, I think we'll just jump into the articles tonight and get started. If you guys have any interest in chatting, well, put it in the chat. And if not, enjoy watching the live stream down the road. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Shink. I am a real estate broker in St. Louis, Missouri. I own my own brokerage, Deerwood Realty. And we help buyers buy houses and sellers sell houses. Now, how does that relate to employment? Well, I've never really fit in with the employment mold. I'm not a 9-to-5er. I was always afraid to be at a desk for my entire workday. I don't like to curry favor amongst managers. I don't like people being fake around me. So I just didn't fit into the workforce. I do have an MBA. I do have an executive master's degree in real estate and construction management. So why not? Why not start a residential brokerage? So that's what I did. But I'm fascinated because, employment is like, it's expensive. If I want to hire an employee, it's expensive. You say, well, if it's that expensive, you shouldn't be in business. I get it. I get what you're saying. And I'm not really necessarily against that thought. I mean, I haven't had an employee until recently. And, I get it. It's very fascinating to me. All the different things that surround, it's a huge topic. So I figured, why not get on the old internets? Why not get on YouTube at 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Saturday, for the most part, and talk about employment issues and just see what other people thought. How's it gone so far? Well, not very well. I'm not going to lie. There's not a whole lot of subscribers. We've got 9. Very seldom does anybody ever show up in the chat. It doesn't seem like Google's, forcing my content out amongst the populace. So I don't know, probably not going great. But we're producing content, and we'll continue to produce content until I just get sick of it, until it doesn't work anymore. As far as doesn't work anymore, I guess I mean until I'm proven that it just won't work. But if you like stuff about your job sucks and you want to tell somebody about it, don't give me your name, don't give me where you work, but just tell me what about the job is terrible, what about it is soul crushing. And then conversely, do you have a job that you just love? And I mean, you're not just saying that like because you're worried that the manager's going to find out. What's the reason why you love your job? I mean, I know people that like don't get paid a lot, but they like the flexibility of their job. I know people that work really, really hard and make a lot of money, but they're pretty miserable people in general. So, we'll talk about that kind of stuff. Email me, text me, chat, something so we can get on the same page. Do I hope to have guests in the future? Probably. It's very hard to pick up guests when you've got 9 subscribers. Like that typically doesn't go very well. So I probably won't have anybody guest streaming for a while, but down the road, I mean, we've got StreamYard. We can do anything we want to, and we can go anywhere we want to across the world in real time. So with that, I think I'm going to get into the article. The first article, let me get my screen where I want it. The first let me check the settings because, I mean, even though I see the camera, even though I see the microphone, I just want to double check. So that's good. Okay, here we go. Let's share our screen, shall we? First article tonight is on the employee-employer disconnect that's fueling the Great Resignation. I don't know if you remember the Great Resignation. It was a big deal a couple months back. What was this written? January, February, March. Now we're in May. But let's talk about it. I feel like I understand the Great Resignation from a certain point of view, but I'm not positive that my point of view is the same as others. Not that it matters. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just, I like to know about this. I don't know that this is a movement. I don't know that it's like heavily organized, but let's just look and see what this is. This was from Fast Company. It says, amid all the headlines about millions of workers quitting their jobs during the Great Resignation, it's easy to miss the signal and the noise. Yes, a record 47.4 million Americans quit their jobs last year, more than a quarter of the total workforce. And yes, the understandable first response from employers has been to throw money at the problem in the form of higher compensation. To many, this is merely the supply and demand dynamic of a temporary tight labor market created by rapidly covering economy. But all the noise surrounding the Great Resignation tends to drown out the vastly more instructive signal that workers are sending. What employers perceive as the Great Resignation is viewed by workers as the Great Transition. People of various backgrounds, places, and circumstances are looking for something different than what they have now. Those who are quitting are finding new jobs they perceive as more attractive. This great transition is a key attribute of a new dynamic, an environment shaped by constant and rapid change where there will never be a new normal. Now, let's just stop right there. Let's do a few things. Number one, I think that in my own industry, in real estate, I saw and I continue to see people living their lives differently after the pandemic. How do you ask? Well, their preferences in housing have changed. How so? Well, it used to be like one home office was totally good. Now people are looking for multiple offices in their house or multiple spaces from which they can work. Even in my house, like I have a home office in the basement. This is where I film from. My wife, when she was home during the pandemic, found a respite or joy working at a dining room table in the I'd say living room. And, she worked there for 2 years and there was no problem. But if I hadn't had my office in the basement, which was far enough away from her that we weren't stepping all over each other during Zoom calls and things of that nature, we would have had to consider finding a different home. So it does tie in with this. And as far as the Great Transition, yeah, I think there are a lot of people that were like, hey, I don't know if I want to go work someplace where there's 3,000 people a day. Maybe that's not a good plan. Here is why. Not only are workers more valuable today, as indicated by rising wages, they're going to be even more valuable tomorrow. Far from being a temporary condition, the labor shortage is likely to be long-term. According to a July 2021 forecast from the Congressional Budget Office, the American workforce will grow by just 4% during the entire 2020s. That's just half the growth rate of the 2000s, only 1/7 the growth rate of the 1970s. Workers are willing to take bigger risks and more likely to move to another company. Just when a strong economy requires more workers, there are fewer workers entering the workforce. This shift has given workers a greater sense of agency. It's fascinating. So I think I was during the early 2000s, and I remember coming out of graduates or out of college with my undergraduate, and there not being any place to work. I was in a terrible situation. It says workers are willing to take bigger. Yes, we did that part. I'm sorry. The answer to attracting and retraining workers for employers must be a cultural solution as well as a financial one. Demographic trends are making workers more scarce, just as demand for their services is increasing. As workers realize they are more valuable, what workers want and what they value will have a greater influence on the strategic direction of the institutions than ever before. In order to attract and retain prized workers, employees will have to engage in their own great transition, one that is more responsive to workers' priorities and values. As newly empowered stakeholders, workers will have more say about their future of their organizations. In this environment, managers have to ask whether the customer is always right or should workers have a say too. Meeting investor expectations is still important, but employee expectations will also need to be considered. The fact that you didn't before is bad enough. Now, it says a recent multi-region McKinsey survey. I don't give much weight to McKinsey anymore. They were consulting on CNN Plus, and that was an absolute debacle. It reveals that there is a significant disconnect between how management and employees currently view this new dynamic. Managers perceive workers' desire for more money, greater development opportunities, and remote or work options, as well as competitor recruitment and pandemic health complications, all as more important factors to change jobs than workers do. Workers say their departures are more influenced by whether they are valued by the organization, have a sense of purpose, work with caring and trusting colleagues, and have a flexible schedule at work. I don't think that's true. I don't think that this is true. Let's talk about this disconnect. This disconnect says managers perceive workers' desire for more money, greater development opportunities, and remote work options, as well as competitor recruitment and pandemic health complications, all as more important factors to change jobs than workers do. Okay. So more money, always a plus. Greater development opportunities, if it helps to make more money, always a plus. Remote work options. I think some people are happy going to an office. I don't think that's a unified front. And then greater competitive recruitment and pandemic health complications. That's what they say that the managers are thinking are the issues. And then workers say they're leaving because they're influenced by whether they're valued by the organization. But what they're saying in valued by the organization, that means being paid more. So the top two reasons for both the employer and the employee seem to be the same. Have a sense of purpose. Well, I mean, it could be underneath the greater development opportunities. Work with caring and trusting colleagues, which is tough because, you want to hire the best, but sometimes the best isn't out there. So you have to hire someone that does it, just does the work. And then work with caring colleagues and have a flexible schedule at work. I believe in workplace flexibility. I really do. I have no issue with it. But what no one's talking about in this particular paragraph is what about our employment laws that were written in the 20s? I mean, maybe we need to look at independent contractor status in a different way. Maybe we need to be able to take our benefits with us from employer to employer. I mean, there's things that we could probably do that could make the employment space more robust, more strong than it currently is. The disconnect is particularly acute in the tightest part of the labor market, younger employees starting their careers. A November Ernst & Young survey found that 63% of Generation Z employees feel it is very or extremely important to work for an employer that shares their values. Only 32% said making a lot of money in their career is a priority. This is not just an American phenomenon. A 2021 Deloitte survey of 8,200 Generation Z workers in 45 countries found that nearly half make decisions about where to work based on personal ethics. In this environment, General Z concerns regarding diversity, Inclusion and sustainability must also become the concerns of the organization for which they work, or they don't. At some point in time, maybe employers are just going to say, look, you work here to make money. And if you can find a better place to go work and make money, you should go do that. But we're not going to do that here. And we're also not going to pay lip service to it. That is, we're not going to say we're going to do all these things and then not do them. Just saying it is not enough. But, Generation Z employees that are just entering the marketplace may think very differently in 10 to 20 years when they are the managers. So it's very interesting what the survey says versus what might be a different level of reality. As workers realize they have the agency that they can act and they can make a difference, more of them will act, making it more likely they will make a difference. In turn, this changes the direction of companies, professions, and governments all over the world. The transformation will not happen overnight, but because demographics are destiny and academic trends create political trends, it is inevitable. Workers are sending the signal loud and clear. The smartest employers will tune out the noise and understand what the signal means. Be careful with that, employers. Be careful with that. How many things, let's talk about something as simple as, there was a time when YouTube wanted video all the time on their platform. I'm sorry, when Google wanted video all the time on their platform. That was going to be the new wave of the future. It was going to help you rank in search results. Well, 5 years later, they're like, oh, you know what? No one else is doing it. We don't care. You have to be careful with real trends. Like first adopters in tech, like the people that bought the first iPhone, just be careful. Be careful what you think you're seeing in the marketplace. That's what I would say on that article. You tell me in the comments, am I wrong? Am I right? I mean, anything. It'd be nice to stream to someone at this point. I mean, seriously, it's a pretty good show. I don't really understand why it doesn't really bring in anything. Let's continue. I thought this was an interesting story from the technological point of view. It says TopGolf settles lawsuit alleging managers were incentivized to underpay workers. What's this about? The Food and Entertainment Group has been accused of incentivizing managers to underpay workers by offering bonus based on labor cost goals. Well, what does this mean? It says TopGolf will settle with workers in response to a class action lawsuit alleging the International Food and Entertainment Company incentivized managers at its U.S. locations to pay employees less than the federal minimum wage for untipped labor, which is just unforgivable. It's unforgivable to me because this is a corporation that makes money. I can understand if you're losing money. I understand if you have to, lay off people because you can't afford to pay them. But to steal from them on the job is not forgivable, in my opinion. Does this make me a bad person? I don't know. You tell me. Does that put me on the side of the worker or on the side of management? I don't know. I personally think it should put me on the side of the worker. First reported by the Dallas Morning News' Dom DeFurio, the case began with a lawsuit filed in Texas federal court in 2020 by two former employees at the company's Spring, Texas location. The suit alleged the company made use of provisions in the Fair Labor Standards Act that allowed restaurants and bars to pay staff $2.13 below the $7.25 national minimum wage on account of their receiving tips throughout the course of the workday. And so this, what my understanding is, and remember, I mean, this is as simple as I can make it because I'm a simple person. Basically, when you're a restaurant worker, when you're like a waitress, then you make tips and you get maybe a small minimum wage. But I mean, not minimum wage. I mean, a minimum wage, like you get at least $2.13 according to these people that, an hour basically. But then in theory, you should make more than that on tips. The suit has been joined by thousands of TopGolf employees across the nation with claims the company manipulated this FLSA loophole by not telling employees that they were working for tips and making workers spend time doing non-tipped labor such as cleaning and sanitizing. It claims TopGolf utilizes software that would allow the company to differentiate these different tasks and increase pay to $7.25 for time spent doing non-tipped labor but that function was never used to allocate the proper pay levels, and that's unforgivable. It's unforgivable. Even if, like, the fact that you had the software to pay the people right, and then you never used the function at all, not cool. TopGolf has denied these allegations and will settle for an undisclosed amount with workers involved in the suit. The complaint, according to Furio, sought back pay for employees non-tip labor at $7.25 an hour. So they're going to deny wrongdoing, and then they're going to settle rather than going to court and be embarrassed, which is fine. My goal here isn't to embarrass TopGolf. My goal here is to shine a light on how quickly young people or employees in general can be exploited by management because they don't know the law or because they're trying to be good employees and not complain. I mean, if someone says, hey, go over there and clean that table, you're like, all right, all right. You don't know if you're getting paid more per hour than you would be for just tips. So anyway, here's where it got a little dicey. TopGolf managers were eligible to receive bonuses in part based on meeting or exceeding certain labor cost targets, which created an incentive to keep the amount paid to tip employees low, the complaint said. See, that's kind of wrong. TopGolf, owned by Callaway Golf Company, has been the subject of several large-scale lawsuits in recent years. In 2021, TopGolf was forced to pay $750,000 in back pay to employees in 25 states for unpaid overtime. The company had allegedly elevated employees into leadership roles without commensurate pay increases and failed to provide compensation for time worked past 40 hours a week. This is tough. It's tough because, to me, it's not like TopGolf. I don't think TopGolf is poor. I don't think that they're really hurting. And so for them to just kind of keep being sued is kind of unseemly. Employers cannot evade federal overtime requirements by simply giving an employee a manager's title, said Betty Campbell, U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Southwest Regional Administrator, after the decision. This case should serve as a clear warning and prompt other employers to review their pay practices. Employers uncertain of their obligation should contact their local wage and hour district office or visit our website for guidance on how to comply with federal law. Yeah, I mean, look, if it's a law, okay, then you should probably comply with it. If you don't like the law, you should lobby to change the law, if that's something that can be done. I mean, we have a lot of situations in the United States where we vote for people and then they just go and do whatever they want to when they get there. It's very strange. And then we don't hold them accountable by voting them out. Anyway, TopGolf also paid $2.6 million in 2021 to end a class action suit lodged in 2017 by Illinois TopGolf employees for violating the state's Biometric Information Protection Act. The complaint alleged the company violated state laws by requiring employees to clock in and out using their fingerprints without securing proper written consent from workers and failed to disclose how the data would be used and stored. In financial reports for the 2021 fiscal, Callaway reported over $1 billion in revenue from its TopGolf properties. Well, that is fantastic. Good for them for making so much money. Bad for them. Bad for them for having to be in all these employment lawsuits. That's not so good. Kind of sad. Let's continue. This is on Fox Business. I don't go to Fox very often anymore. But let's just see what they say. It says the Great Resignation, over 70% of workers regret quitting their jobs. Well, what is this about? What do you mean they regret quitting their jobs? Why would they do that? What's this mean? It says the majority of U.S. workers who changed jobs during the Great Resignation actually regret quitting, even feel a sense of buyer's remorse, according to a new survey. 7 out of 10 workers, about 72%, admitted they were surprised to learn that their new roles or companies were different from what they were led to believe during the interview process, according to the survey of more than 2,500 millennial and Generation Z job seekers by the news. Only 72%, honestly, when people are, when they're recruiting you, they will tell you anything. And now you're going to say, oh, well, we're surprised about that. The Muse CEO, Catherine Minshew, described the trend as shift shock. They'll join a new company thinking it's their dream job, and then there's a real reality check. Minshew explained that in some cases, job seekers don't ask the right questions during an interview process. Other times it's because a recruiter misrepresented the role or was overly optimistic about the company in an effort to get them to join. In fairness, she acknowledged that it's hard to assess the culture of a new company through Zoom. Prior to the pandemic, candidates would generally be able to visit the office, ultimately allow them to better gauge a company's culture. Well, yeah, okay. Okay, we'll go with that. Regardless, it's really damaging. It's this really damaging phenomenon where people are brand new in our role, and then they realize suddenly it's not all as advertised. As a result, Minshew said more people are quitting rather than sticking it out. It used to be that if you started a new job and you didn't like it, you needed to stay for 1 or 2 years to avoid a black mark on your resume. But we've seen this really interesting shift in perceptions. About 80% of millennials and Generation Z workers said it's okay to leave a new job in 6 months if it's not as advertised. I would say leave it even sooner. I mean, if you don't like it, just leave. About 1 in 5 job seekers admitted they would quit within a month if it's just not as expected, and 41% said they would give it between 2 and 6 months. Just under half of job seekers would actually try to get their old job back, according to the data. Minshew said that the wave of employees quitting after a short period of time could fuel another Great Resignation, which refers to millions of Americans leaving their jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. To change this pattern, Minshew says companies need to be more upfront because it can help retain workers who aren't totally satisfied but could be overtime. People are much more likely to accept the good and the bad and to show up as engaged and productive if they have entered the situation with their eyes wide open. Well, I agree with that. Do you? I mean, to me, it seems pretty obvious. It's like, maybe don't lie to the people to get them recruited into the organization. Maybe tell them the truth. Like if you don't have a very good cafeteria, like don't tell people like, hey, we've got a cafeteria. Just be like, yeah, we've got one, but it's not very good. Like you might not like it. That's the kind of stuff. Just don't open, like, I think what happens is during an interview, like, so you're the interviewer and you really need to hire someone because you're feeling pain. You're feeling pain in the sense of work is not being completed and it's just falling more and more behind. So you need someone. So when you talk to these people, you're very interested in hiring them. And sometimes I think that you're more interested in hiring them just to have a body that you can pretend to, shovel all the work off to rather than finding the right person for the job. This is my opinion. I don't know if you share it, and that's okay. If you don't, put it in the comment section or chat with me. I mean, there's literally no one here. You'd be the first in line. Come on and chat. That's where I'm at. Let's move on. I thought this was interesting for a different reason. So it says Chinese premier promises 13 million jobs to reverse slump. Have you ever heard someone in the United States, a president, any number of presidents say, hey, we're gonna fix the economy, and then they're like, we're gonna create so many jobs from green energy, and then they never really do, or that no one ever really calls them out on it. I thought this was interesting because China's like, we're gonna start 13 million, we're gonna generate 13 million jobs, so deal with it. Okay, so here we go. Beijing on the AP. China's government hopes to generate as many as 13 million new jobs this year to help reserve a painful economic slump. It faces many difficulties and challenges, the country's number 2 leader said on Friday. Forecasters said the ruling Communist Party is likely to struggle to meet its official target of 5.5% annual economic growth, its lowest since the 1990s. That would be down sharply from last year's 8.1% expansion at a time when China is under self-imposed pressure from a crackdown on debt. Beijing worries is dangerously high, as well as the coronavirus, weak global export demand, and high energy costs as oil prices surged during the war in Ukraine. But fear not, China and Russia have combined to build pipelines from Russia to China, and they're doing business together just fine now. So thank you for your great foreign policy, European leaders. Let's put it that way. Thank you for your policy, and let's throw in the United States as well. They seem to not know what they're doing either. Premier Li Keqiang, I said it. If it's wrong, I'm sorry, promised pro-job policies that included tax and fee cuts totaling $400 billion for businesses, especially small entrepreneurs. He said, if that works, we're preparing to step it up. China's workforce is shrinking and fallen by almost 5% from its 2011 peak. But efforts to control the debt in the vast real estate industry triggered a plunge last year in housing sales and construction, which supports millions of jobs. raising the prospect of a politically dangerous spike in unemployment. As economic growth slid to 4% over a year earlier in the final quarter of 2021, leaders responded by easing up on longer-term measures to reduce debt and nurture self-sustaining growth based on domestic consumption instead of trade and investment. China aims to create 11 million or preferably 13 million urban jobs in 2022, Li said at a national televised news conference after the closing of the annual meeting of China's ceremonial legislature. He said the total number of job seekers this year is forecast at 16.6 million, including a record 10.6 million university graduates. The government also needs to ensure almost 300 million rural migrant workers in cities have jobs. That's a lot of people. The world's second largest economy created 12.7 million jobs last year, up from 2021's 11.9 million, according to government data report. Do you trust the Chinese on their statistics? Yeesh. Forecasters expect the economy to weaken further before rebounding in mid-year. A recovery is expected to take longer than usual due to Beijing's desire to avoid relying on its traditional tool of encouraging real estate investments, which might push up debt and housing costs. Efforts to end outbreaks of coronavirus are also slowing a recovery. The premier expressed confidence official economic targets can be met, but warned China is also grappling with debt, global warming, and a gulf between its elite and the poor majority. Not any different than the United States in that regard. The situation we face is still complex and severe, and there are many difficulties and challenges. Li expressed hope for better relations with Washington, but announced no concessions in a tariff war over Beijing's technology ambitions. Trade envoys from the two sides have talked by phone since President Joe Biden took office in January 2021, but they haven't announced plans for face-to-face talks. And why is that? Do the Chinese consider Joe Biden to be a weak president? I don't know. I'm just asking. We still hope the two sides will respect each other, peacefully coexist, and cooperate for win-win results. China was the first major economy to rebound from the coronavirus pandemic, but annual growth has declined steadily over the past decade. The International Monetary Fund and private sector forecasters expect growth as low as 4.3% this year. Meanwhile, investors are nervously watching to see if one of China's biggest developers, Evergrande Group, can avoid defaulting on a $310 billion in debt. Li says Chinese business leaders he talked with support tax cuts as the quickest way to generate jobs instead of government-led investment or handing out vouchers to households to boost consumer spending. We need to rely on market-oriented avenues and means to resolve issues related to employment. Also Friday, Li says he plans to step down next year at the end of his second 5-year term as premier. That is in line with the ruling party's transition since the 1990s of leaders handing power to a younger generation once a decade. But President Xi Jinping is expected to defy that by having self-named to a third term as party leader this year. So they're just going to create 13 million jobs just out of thin air. We don't really use numbers over here. I've noticed the politicians don't really ever say, like, we're going to create 5 million. We say the potential to create, or like, remember like the green jobs under Obama, like that was going to be, if you fix the windmill, these were all high paying jobs. And I don't know how that ever worked out. Did it work out? I mean, I really don't know. Put that in the chat. I'm going to put this over here. My back's kind of bothering me tonight. And I hope I don't break the microphone, but I just feel like I need to sit back a little bit, be a little more comfortable than normal. Let's see how I look on the screen. I don't look too bad. Put that hand down and we'll be okay. Okay, well, let's go on. I mean, I'm here, you're here, or maybe you're here in the future. Who knows? Let's go. In the term, this was interesting. I think this is on Business Insider. The term competitive salary in job ads can be off-putting to job seekers. Recruiters should be more open about how much they pay. I totally agree with that. In fact, I totally agree. Let's be honest. I grew up at a time where there was no internet. Okay. And if you wanted to find a job, you looked in the newspaper, and like employers had to pay by the word or the letter or the space they took up in the newspaper. And so, you know, they were pretty much loath to put too much information in. Plus, you know, in theory, like employment is competitive in theory. So like if you've got a good job candidate, first of all, you'd have to find that person. Not as a criticism, but I mean, if you had a good job candidate and they wanted to work there versus work 3 other places, like you're in competition with other employers. I don't know how true that is now. I mean, it's very hard to identify a great worker. Maybe you're at 50-50 on finding one. I don't even think it's that high. But anyway, let's continue with the article. Let me also check my chat because I don't know. Now, if you hear something in the background, my wife just jumped into the shower and the water was just going crazy, and I can still hear it more than I can talk. So I apologize if you can hear it as well. Employers are being urged to stop using the word competitive on job ads in regards to the salary. Reed surveyed 2,000 workers. 78% would be less likely to apply for a role that didn't list a salary. 78%. So how much are you going to pay me? That's going to be kind of important. I'm not going to go work at a job. Like we used to put commensurate with experience. Like what the hell did that mean? I don't know. But people would come. So whatever. A culture of salary secrecy has been blamed as a factor behind gender and ethnicity pay gaps. That's interesting. So if you are hiding the job wage on the ad for the employment, that could be viewed and be blamed as a factor behind gender and ethnicity pay gaps. We can't have that. I don't think anyone, but I personally don't. I don't want to speak for anyone else, I guess. I personally don't want to see a gender or ethnicity pay gap. Employers should avoid using the word competitive in job descriptions. And wow, I am so laid back. Do I look terrible? Let me check. I'm actually going here. Do I look? It looks like I see it. Kind of looks like I'm leaning, but I'm so much more comfortable right now. I hope you can hear me okay. Let's get back to it. Employers should avoid using the word competitive in job descriptions and be more transparent about salaries when advertising jobs if they want workers to apply. That's a survey showing that. A Reed, one of the UK's largest recruitment companies, polled 2008 working adults. Why did they pick 2008? Why not 2100? Why not 2000? What did the 8 have to do with anything? Anyway, working adults and 252 hiring managers for their views on salary transparency. The results showed that 78% of workers said they were less likely to apply for a role that didn't include a salary. 1/5 said they only applied for roles listing pay. I think that's fair. Look, you need to let me know how much I'm going to make at this job or I'm not applying. I'll just go work somewhere where they do post the salary. I mean, that's just it. Like, if you don't like something, go somewhere else. A culture of salary secrecy has been blamed as a factor behind entrenched gender and ethnicity pay gaps on both sides of the Atlantic. Campaigners say that giving job seekers access to more information can help people negotiate better pay, could also help companies attract a wider pool of applications amid an ongoing labor shortage. Now, look, even if you do give employees more information that helps them negotiate better pay, as long as it also helps companies attract a wider pool of applications amid an ongoing labor shortage, I'm kind of okay with that. Just under half of hiring managers, 46%, surveyed by Reed, said their organization had a salary transparency policy, and 62% didn't believe that salary secrecy affected applications negatively. Job seekers are generally in favor of greater transparency. 48% said that it negatively affects their perception of the hiring companies. Around a quarter said they were more likely to be put off applying for forms, or use the word oh God, if I could just learn how to read. Around a quarter said they were likely to be put off applying or firms who used the word competitive in place of a figure. I think that's just a bad sentence, and not that I'm a bad reader. You wouldn't shop at a supermarket that doesn't list its prices, so why should we expect people to sift through job ads that don't advertise salaries? Simon Wingate, managing director of read.co.uk, said. Well, I remember somebody was talking about buying a Rolls Royce, and the car salesman said, well, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. I thought that was quite smug, and I enjoyed the way they said that. It says it's clear that job seekers want to apply for roles at businesses that are open about what they pay, he added. An analysis of job adverts on its site shows those displaying salary amounts receive 27% more applications than those that don't. Yeah, but who are those people applying? I mean, why did they? I mean, are they any better than the ones that were there, that would have been there? It's kind of hard to know. I mean, what if you say, oh, this job pays $80,000. I'm putting in my resume. This job says commiserate with experience. I'm not putting in my resume. Are you telling me that people would rather be unemployed and not even apply to jobs if they don't know what the salary is before they're bothered to go in for an interview? Well, that's just it. Are people going in for interviews now anyway? Are we all just doing everything by Zoom? We read that article tonight where it said, like, people are not getting a good sense of the company culture because they're interviewing on Zoom and they're starting on Zoom and they're working on Zoom. There's no real camaraderie. They're not really talking to others. Very fascinating issue. So anyway, a lack of pay transparency can perpetuate gender pay gaps. What is this about? It says the data comes in the same week that the UK government announced plans to tackle the lack of pay transparency in order to address the country's gender pay gap, which saw men paid on average 15.4% more than women across full and part-time roles. The proposals announced on International Women's Day include a pilot requiring participating companies to be more transparent about salaries with job adverts. They'll also stop asking for information about a candidate's previous salary, which studies show can keep people on lower wages. This can be particularly problematic for women and people of color who are historically underpaid compared with their male and white peers. So, this to me is hey, we want to hire you. Say I'm a company, hey, we want to hire you, but what did you make at your last job? And you say, well, I made, how much do you want me to make? It's like, well, we made $30,000 a year. Oh, you did? Yeah. But what if you said that you made 60? I mean, are they going to pay you 60? I mean, where do you go wrong in inflating that number now that you know what the strategy is? I don't know. According to Fawcett Society, which campaigns for gender equality, 61% of women said it negatively impacted their confidence to negotiate their pay when they were asked about their previous earnings. 53% of men agreed. So, I mean, a majority, when pay transparency is there. Oh, sorry. I missed a line. Giving people more information about their own and their colleagues' pay can help them negotiate better pay. That's just a sentence. It's just right in the middle there. I don't even know what that's about. When pay transparency is there, when you know your wage, then individuals react and they ask for either higher wages or they change companies to get those higher wages. Almudena Sevilla, professor of economics and public policy at the University College of London and chair of the Royal Economic Society's Women's Committee, previously told Insider about her research from UK universities. In the U.S., Colorado, Nevada, Connecticut, California, Washington, and Maryland have all introduced some state pay transparency rules. Rhode Island will introduce legislation in 2023. For May 2022, businesses in New York City must include a minimum and maximum salary range on any job promotion or transfer opportunity. I'm okay with that. If you think that'll solve the problems, who am I to say they won't? I really don't have an answer to that one. I mean, as an employee, I think it would be really great for kids that were in college or kids that were in trade school, kids that were thinking about their job future, to look at a job ad and see hey, this is what we pay, rather than shooting for a job and then being surprised what the number is when they get there. When I was a kid or when I was younger, I would have to, if I wanted salary information, I have to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Very helpful website as far as that's concerned, but I don't know that that wouldn't be better than just going ahead and just publishing what you're planning on paying people. I don't know. I do think it should be. I think you should have pay transparency. I don't think the world is the way it was. It's just me. Let's continue. we're rolling through articles tonight, and I'm sorry, but I mean they're fascinating, but they're it's good. Now, I mean, I've got more articles for tomorrow night. We should be fine. Let's continue. Seriously concerned, boss dragged for limiting employees' medical care. I thought this was fascinating. Who are you, boss, to limit someone's medical care? Well, let's find out. Members of a popular internet forum were outraged after one employee explained why their boss took issue with their repeated medical appointments, despite having what they described as an incurable disease. In a viral Reddit post published on our Anti-Work, the employee detailed a meeting in which they were accosted for taking too much unpaid leave and details the events that ultimately led to their resignation. Titled, "Boss said I had to stop going to hospital appointments. Shocked upon seeing my resignation." The viral post has received more than 29,000 upvotes. Writing that they have since moved on to a better position in a different industry, the viral post author, otherwise referred to as the original poster, recounted the conversation they had with their boss at a previous employer. This guy proceeds to tell me that I've taken too much unpaid leave, more than anyone in the company, including people overseas, and that I need to stop. He also said in the same breath that he was disappointed with my output and that he's seriously concerned. Despite the explanation that they had been attending necessary appointments to address their chronic pain and incurable disease, the original poster said their boss was adamant that they have missed too much time at work and that their absence had caused lapses in productivity. It probably did. If you're never at work, how are you going to be productive? And you don't, let's say you don't work from home. Okay. So let's just say that you, seriously. It says soon after, the original poster said they issued their resignation and used their boss's own argument about productivity against him. Cut to 2 weeks later, and me calling a meeting with the boss and presenting my one-sentence letter of resignation. The original poster wrote they were utterly gobsmacked. I repeated back to them that they literally told me that if they were seriously concerned about my output, maybe this job wasn't for me. In the United States, there are no federal requirements for employers to provide paid sick leave. Now, this was unpaid sick leave, and I don't understand how this showed them, ooh, look at you. I repeated back to them that they literally told me that they were seriously concerned about my output. Maybe this job wasn't for me. Well, maybe it's not. If you're not outputting, are you outputting at the level that you need to be to continue being employed there? I mean, let's throw out the whole idea of, you have a medical issue. Let's just say, are you putting out as much work as someone else and being paid the same amount? That makes sense. If you're not producing, okay, what in the world? I don't mean to be heartless and cruel either. I mean, I understand people have a tough go at things. I mean, we all do, but some more than others. How about that? Still, I mean, if you hire someone, what are you hiring them for? Is it is it free babysitting service? That's my issue. Seriously, at what point are we just going to get some work done? Those certain states, counties, and cities do require the employers of certain sizes, as well as employers that generate certain net incomes, to provide paid sick leave for full-time employees, according to Society for Human Resource Management. Now, myself, I work as a real estate broker. I am a commissioned salesperson. I don't get raises. I don't get paid sick leave. I don't get anything. You say, well, John, why do you continue to work there? Yeah. I mean, I see your point. In theory, I can make more money doing this and not be limited. In practice, I guess there's 20,000 real estate agents in St. Louis County or St. Louis County. I mean, there's a lot of real estate agents and there hasn't been a lot of inventory. I've got a lot of buyers. I don't really think that making an unlimited amount of money is my problem right now, to be honest with you. It's the least of my problems. In New York, let's see. While 30 of 50 states do not have laws requiring paid sick leave, states like Arizona, Colorado, Massachusetts, Nevada, New York, and Oregon, among others, do. In New York, many employers with 5 or more employees or a net income of more than $1 million must provide paid sick leave to employees. In Maine, employers with at least 10 employees are required to provide paid time off that can be used for any reason, including emergencies, illnesses, and vacations. In Oregon, the requirements are the same. Oh, God, I'm yawning. While cities and counties across the country feature their own laws for paid sick leave, employers subject to the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993 are required to allow employees to take unpaid leave, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. Intended for scenarios like birth of a child or the necessary care of a spouse, the FMLA also ensures 12 work weeks of unpaid leave during a 12-month period for serious health conditions that make the employee unable to perform the essential functions of his or her job. However, some employees, like the one described in the original poster, are stingy when it comes to employees regularly taking time off, even if dealing with critical medical issues. Ending the viral post with a message to our AntiWorks 1.8 million members, the original poster said that employees should be able to prioritize their health over their workplace productivity. Well, that's what they think. If your boss is not taking your health seriously, hang in there. You are worth more than their bottom line. Many Redditors commenting on the viral thread echoed this sentiment and defended the original poster's decision to quit their job. It's always easier to tell other people how they can live their lives. It's just something I've noted. The most surprising thing is that they were absolutely shocked that you quit. Did they really expect you to go, okay, I'll stop going to the hospital and let my health deteriorate just because you guys suck? I mean, what outcome were they expecting here? I think that this was a nice way to tell this person to take a hike, and without firing, they got him to resign so that there was no need to pay benefits. This is just my speculation. Another Redditor who questioned the employer's motive for denying the original poster unpaid leave speculated it was a control tactic. I don't understand. The part I don't understand is the unpaid part. If they aren't paying for it, why should they even care? And if they were concerned for your output, also shouldn't they shouldn't also care if you leave, unless they were bullshitting you and they just wanted control. The system we live in and work is fundamentally exploitative. I'll say that. It is fundamentally exploitative. Find a better one. That's the counter to that. Going to have a tough time doing so. Let's go to the last article. I'm not doing any more. Now, do you think that I'm a big fan of the Daily Beast? Well, you'd be wrong, because I'm not. But they had an article I thought it was interesting, and I thought we could go. What I wrote in my description tonight is why do you trust the U.S. government to enforce the law when they don't follow it themselves? Why should they be allowed to write the laws when they can't do it themselves? This is a question I have for you, open question. You let me know what you think, but let's read this article and see if we think this is just terrible. Supervisor at the architect of the Capitol's office used nude photos, threats of violence, and racist jokes to harass a subordinate, according to the Office of Inspector General. Now, when we see AOC going down here, this is AOC, the Office of or the architect of the Capitol. It's not AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. It's just not. Let's just keep it at that. A supervisor. I just found something in my desk that I didn't even know existed. Weird. Wonder what it's for. It's kind of weird because I've had this desk for like a couple of years and didn't realize this was down here. I almost think that it was like another. So strange. All right, here we go. A supervisor at the U.S. government agency responsible for keeping the Capitol, Senate, House up and running bullied and harassed a subordinate by emailing numerous inappropriate and sexually explicit photos, including a snap of the employee being run over by a truck and another of the staffer's head photoshopped onto a naked man sitting next to Bernie Sanders. Wow, this is going nowhere. That's according to a newly released report from the architect of the Capitol's Office of Inspector General. The fact that they have an Office of Inspector General for the architect of the Capitol is amazing. The AOC and the IOG, or the OIG, all being real G's, which found that the same unnamed supervisor who worked in the Senate office buildings threatened to beat a worker, frequently shouted at people, and printed and displayed an image disparaging a subordinate Hispanic employee because the supervisor thought it was humorous. Maybe it was. Maybe it was humorous. But I don't know that would have been appropriate at work. Fair enough? Supervisors stated they were unaware the images could be found offensive and created the images to bring humor to the office. Okay. A forensic examination by the OIG of the supervisor's agency issued desktop computer revealed multiple images of females in lingerie images of AOC employees, nude images of males and females, and explicit digitally altered images, according to the report. You shouldn't use your company computer for that. I'm just saying. A subsequent forensic review of the supervisor agency's issued iPhone revealed images of AOC employees, Office of, what is it called again? Architect of the Capitol. Images of AOC employees, a photo towards an unknown residence taken through an archery scope, as well as photos of political figures, including a photo of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi exiting the Russell Senate office building. Well, that's kind of like, I don't know, you work there and you take a picture of the woman. I mean, is that unusual? Are you not allowed? I mean, I don't know why you'd want to, but I mean, are you not allowed? Investigators also discovered 2 pictures of former President Donald Trump, though the IOG report does not include further specifics or say if they'd been altered in any way. Well, why don't they ask if the Nancy Pelosi pictures have been altered in any way? I'm just asking. Responding to allegations of shouting at underlings, the supervisor at first denied using profanity or threatening anyone, but later admitted to telling a subordinate, "I'm going to beat your ass. I'm in a disagreement about overtime." I guess that would be a threat. Washington, D.C. attorney Jonathan Puth, I'm guessing, represents employees facing sexual harassment, workplace discrimination, and unfair treatment. He described the behavior described in the OIG report as very unusual, especially because it's taking place in the halls of the U.S. Senate, where there's a certain level of decorum expected. I'll tell you what, you think that's true? Have you seen the Senate? Isn't Chucky Schumer in the Senate? You think that guy has got a certain level of decorum? Have you? I mean, seriously. I mean, I don't make me single out him. I mean, there's others out there too, but this idea that this is a holy place where people always treat each other fairly and respectfully. Let's be honest. This is a den of despair and depravity. These people are disgusting. It's horrible behavior that appears to be going on, and the laws are intended to encourage people to come forward to complain so harassment can be addressed, Puth told the Daily Beast. But the description of the harassment here is horrendous and reflective of a very deep-seated problem here. It does not appear to be occasional or lighthearted, but really highly sexualized and aggressive behavior and conduct by a supervisor. Interesting. The supervisor denied using government-issued equipment to search for or create any sexual explicit images, but could not provide any explanation for how the material wound up on their devices. The report states, adding that the accusations were all in fact substantiated by OIG investigators. The investigation began in late January when the case was referred to the OIG by the architect of the Capitol offices. Wow, this is going to be tough. Referred to the OIG by the architect of the Capitol's Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Dispute Resolution as part of a bullying and sexual harassment investigation. In 2020, architect of the Capitol, J. Brett Blanton, vowed, "I want to reaffirm my commitment to having no tolerance for racism, discrimination, or sexual harassment." I agree with that. Why should you allow that stuff anywhere, even in the government? Doesn't make sense, but you do. This is hardly the first time toxic workplace allegations have been leveled against the AOC. In a lawsuit filed earlier this year, Lynn Long, a black mechanic with a glowing work record, said he had previously that he'd repeatedly been called the N-word, which is inappropriate. I mean, seriously. And how was that even possible? And then physically threatened by a white supervisor, was repeatedly sabotaged by coworkers, and was passed over for promotions due to his race. Like, this is in America. This is in the Senate. Okay? That's how bad that this stuff is. These people think they can get away with anything, and they often do. Another black employee alleged in a 2019 lawsuit that he too was called the N-word by colleagues and found a noose hanging from a piece of equipment he was told to inspect. Seriously. And these people are allowed to write laws, and I mean, it's just, and tax people. And I mean, they got to get their house in order before they tell us what to do. And also in 2019, a female AOC painter sued the agency after she said, among other things, that she was instructed to wear revealing costumes during holiday events and was told to go bend over in the superintendent's office if she wanted a promotion. Oh my God. This is terrible. And this is our Senate, right? These are people that work in the government. AOC staffers have long complained about managers displaying pornography at work. In one instance, an AOC employee was the one with porn on their phone, having also bragged on separate occasions about having sex with a minor while visiting Central America several years prior, a separate OIG report. Seriously. Like, at what point does this have to stop? I mean, like, seriously. Last year, another AOC staffer was accused of using homophobic and racial slurs during an interaction with Capitol Police officer who wanted the employee to submit to a routine search at the building entrance. Wow. Homophobic and racial slurs in the same interaction. Many AOC workers said they're afraid to speak up for fear of retaliation, the OIG reported to Congress in 2019. Well, I don't blame you. I mean, with these people running the show, you think they're going to take kindly to your speaking up? Les Alderman, Long's attorney, told the Daily Beast that the architect of the Capitol's office is unique and that you find this stuff everywhere, but the density of the claims that the architect, there's a lot of this relative to the size of the workforce. You'd think that a responsible employer would take action immediately, Alderman said. What I can tell you is, at the AOC, in my experience, that has not been so. They usually circle the wagons around the supervisor. What in the world? The latest AOC supervisor find themselves in hot water, also misused sick leave, the new OIG report says, concluding the case is closed and management action is pending. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll be fired. Unfortunately, though, it's oftentimes the case. The people in supervisory position who feel free to engage in this type of behavior feel free to do so because they've been afforded a certain amount of power in the workplace, and sometimes it's not so easy to get rid of them. Puth told the Daily Beast, we find quite regularly, astonishingly, that people who harass employees are allowed to continue serving in their positions, and it's that power that gives them permission to continue to engage in this type of behavior. The architect of the Capitol did not respond to the Daily Beast request for comment. I'm telling you, can't trust the government to write laws, can't trust the government to do anything, right? Seriously, this is bad. Person should be fired. Be done with it. They should go work somewhere else. Don't call anyone the N-word. I mean, can you use the N-word? I guess free speech. Should you? No. There's a lot of words you shouldn't use. I can think of some like during my lifetime that were fine, and now apparently they're not okay, but I never got the memo, so I'm kind of iffy on it. I'm not going to do it here on YouTube. That would be bad. Anyway, that's what I have for you tonight. I think I've gone long enough. I've enjoyed my time here speaking out of the void. I hope that if you watch this in the future, you will enjoy it as well. If you could do me a favor, it'd be really nice to have maybe 12 subscribers, maybe 12. I'd go with that. So you'd have to hit the subscribe button for that to work. So try that. I don't know if I want you to smash the like button. I don't know anything like that. I know my mouse was just messed up there for a minute. I'm going to go back here. What did we learn? Well, I think mainly that the people in government that work there are protected, and they're allowed to do things that you wouldn't be allowed to do at your work. And no one seems to care. I mean, that article isn't going to get anywhere that I just read. Anyway, that's all I have for you tonight. Tomorrow, will I be here? Yes. Will you be here? I hope so. That's going to do it. I just want to say thanks again for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.